Chevron 1, encoded.
For my ally is the Force, and the powerful ally it is. Life creates it, makes it grow.
You failed, Your Highness. I am a Jedi, like my father before me.
Cry hammer, and let's set the dogs of war.
Chevron 2, encoded.
Conan, what is best in life? Crush your enemies, see them driven before you, to hear the lamentation of your women.
It's all in the reflexes.
I'll also say that you're heavy into martial arts, Tai Chi and all that killer stuff. I suppose we have to register you as a lethal weapon.
Chevron 3, encoded.
And somebody ought to belt you in the mouth. But I won't. I won't. The hell I will.
Chevron 4, encoded.
Do you expect me to talk? No, Mr. Bond, I expect you to die.
Chevron 5, encoded.
You take the blue pill. The story ends. You wake up in your bed and believe whatever you want to. You take the red pill. You stay in Wonderland. And I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes.
Chevron 6, encoded.
Not while you can, monkey boy.
Great Scott.
Back off, man. I'm a scientist.
You shall not pass! I thought I'd die fighting side by side with an elf.
What about side by side with a friend?
The day may come when the courage of men fails, when we forsake our friends and break all bonds of fellowship. But it is not this day.
Chevron 7 is locked.
You know, I had to go with a different title card for the thumbnail there because the actual black hole one has that swirl on it, and that would not have fit on the thumbnail. It would not have. Hail and howdy to all out there across both our channels. Welcome to Saturday Night Drive-In, where we take a break from the nonsense and hopefully enjoy some movies. Sometimes we do, sometimes we don't, but either way, we always have a good discussion. I am Adam the Renaissance Nerd, and I am joined by Jed, the Hollywood Scholar. Jed, how you doing this week?
I'm doing great, as usual. It feels like it's been a long time since I've seen you. We just push our 2 times that we see each other right next to each other and then have a long week break before we see each other again. It's weird. Our domestic partnership might be in danger.
It's our streaming schedules. You are locked into what's going on at G&G, and I'm locked into my stuff, and then I'm on a couple other channels here and there, which are, again, up against G&G stuff. And it is what it is. But Saturday and Sunday, it's our time together, Jed.
Yes.
So we maximize it and keep our relationship alive. But anyway, so welcome one and all. We hope you've had a good weekend. Normally, we dive right in, but I just want to say welcome back, good Sir Algrim the Strong. I know you've been having some health issues. We're happy to have you back with us officially on a stream. Welcome back, my good friend. I hope you enjoy the show, and hope everybody across both our channels, because we now simulcast across both our channels for this stuff, because that's just the smart thing to do. And I was a boomer and first realized it last week. Anyway, all right, so this week, we're getting a little bit in the Wayback Machine, and we're going back to when Disney was actually still Disney. I know. Wow, those are words you don't often hear out of my mouth. We're going to compliment Disney. We're going to have a good discussion about Disney. Jed, what is our movie this week?
Our movie is the 1979 sci-fi classic, The Black Hole. And I should correct myself, the cult classic, because not a whole lot of people I know have actually seen this. So it's a unique film when it comes to what we talked about before. It's definitely unique.
It's unique. Now, you chose this because you just read the book, right?
That's right. I just read the novelization of the film, and there are some big differences between the two, specifically with the ending. After reading the book, I didn't think it was possible to come up with something weirder than the book had. They pulled it off. They are
meta as hell with this ending. It is out there. And it's what I'm trying to be very careful about my criticism of this movie, because it's 1979. we are 2 years removed from Star Wars coming out. Star Wars revolutionized special effects in science fiction for everything. And this is still young Disney, technically. This is not to say Disney's been in existence for, again, maybe about 40 years at this point. But what have they done for the most part? They've done
mostly animated,
animation, but they did have their line of live action movies, but they were realism movies. They were set in real places, done on sound stages, done
like the computer
on...
wore tennis shoes.
But you know what I'm saying? They were literally movies like Mary Poppins, stuff like that, sound stages, or done on location, not special effects heavy. And if they did use special effects, a lot of times they roped in animation, which is what their specialty was. This was Disney trying to branch out at the time. And it was not successful at the time, which is why this is a cult classic, why it's respected and liked, but it doesn't garner tons of attention.
Well, and even though with all those caveats that you just said, I think it is still fair to criticize some of the visual effects, because a few days prior to watching The Black Hole, I actually rewatched The Cage, the original pilot for Star Trek, with Rachel for the first time. Her first time. I've seen it before. And that was well over a decade before this film came out, on a television budget, and it was significantly better.
Did you watch it in black and white or the restored version that we have now with the HD upgrades?
The restored version, but even still, it looks significantly better.
We watched it about, I would say, 4 or 5 months ago on Star Trek Engage. And I mean, well, on Engage, we watched the crappy version. I myself watched the restored version, which held up fine. And that was a shoestring budget. But you're right. It is. I want to be fair about criticizing this. I don't want to do it, because my criticisms are mostly going to be not so much with the story, but some of the presentation and some of the technical stuff. That's where my criticism.
I would agree.
That's where my criticism would be, because this has a very good cast. This has a great cast of the time, and it also has an interesting soundtrack. John Barry. Well, it's interesting. I mean, John Barry, known for James Bond, and we'll save the soundtrack comments for the end, like we normally do.
Yeah, definitely have comments on that this time.
Yeah. It's dude. The movie opens with an overture. It opens with an overture.
I was not expecting that. We thought our TV was broken for the first few minutes.
You see, here's the thing. I mean, I got my copy, and I realized when I turned it on, I'm sitting down watching it, I'm thinking, oh. As the music started, I realized what's coming up, and then cinema knowledge says, "Oh, we're getting an overture." Speed forward, because I'm not going to sit there for 3 minutes.
Yep.
Because my time is precious right now. It was yesterday. I had other shit to do, a lot of crap to do. I wanted to get on. Now I still gave the movie its due. I didn't do it.
You didn't skip through actual movie.
Yeah, I didn't skip through actual movie. And when I tried to, I realized, shit, no, go back. You missed something. Because it was like, we're taking so long walking down these hallways. I gotta get around here. But again, it's a classic movie framed with classic structure, with a solid cast, with a solid story, but at times not just the actors are chewing the scenery. I mean, Maximilian Schell, he chews the hell out of this whole movie. He is eating that scenery.
He's very intimidating
for lunch, dinner, supper, late night snack. He's eating that whole thing up. Everybody else delivers a solid performance, but the movie itself, the way I feel, the movie itself seems to chew the scenery. Is that do you understand what I'm trying to say when I say that?
Not 100%.
Okay. I feel like at times it's going over the top to compensate for one of my major criticisms, not being remotely scientifically accurate. I mean, now, listen, I am no perfect science guy. In fact, I'm a science dullard. I know this. But in 1979, did they know how black holes worked yet?
I'm not sure. Yeah. I'm sure they discovered them, obviously, but it is difficult to know anything. Even today, we believe a lot of what we know is supposition. So there's really no knowing black holes at this current point in time.
But there's a better definition of what goes on in the black hole. I
think absolutely.
Today was then, and I felt. And here is the problem of watching something that is with hindsight. I'm watching with, and I don't say this as a criticism of that as you normally use it, with a modern day perspective, using modern day science, and having watched another, because it's 79, we're now 2024, another essentially 40 plus years of science fiction storytelling, some of it trying to be accurate, some of it trying to be outrageous. Watching that stuff now to then, I can't help but compare and contrast. I can't help.
No, and that's entirely fair, and that's why I think the book really succeeds. I think the book is better, significantly better. But the ending is just as weird. I'm not a fan of either ending, just to be clear.
No,
but
I remembered the ending. The ending is the one thing I remembered from when I watched it.
The ending is different in the book.
Yeah,
it is different, but it is still very, very weird.
When we get to there, I'll want you to compare and contrast.
Yeah, compare. But overall, they delve into the science a lot more. We get more of how the engine, his special anti-grav unit works, and
things
just
are
all
missing. There, you jumped to where I wanted to go. I feel as though when I'm watching this movie, there are things missing. And
every single time I felt the same way, I went back to the book and it was there. So the book is far and away the superior. And this might be unpopular for the people who are in the chat who watched this, grew up with it, love this film. I think this film is the perfect example of a film in a perfect Hollywood, obviously, that should be remade. A film with a great concept, a great foundation, a great book that just was let down by the technology of its time, the execution of its time, by the marketing of its time. Like, very few people I know have even heard of this movie, but seeing it, there's something really there that's worth exploring. So this would be a movie I would remake.
I was watching the chat earlier, and the chat is going to go, we're going to go. This is a classic movie of man playing God, of reaching beyond the physical to the metaphysical, wanting to ascend higher, to evolve faster. And it does that well. Maximilian, or I'm sorry, I want to see his real I want to call him Schnell. I want to use Reinhardt. Because
is that who you've been talking about with Maximilian the whole time? Because Maximilian,
not the robot, the actor. Maximilian.
Okay, I thought you were talking about the robot, because the robot's name is Maximilian too.
Yeah, that's the thing. The actual actor, Maximilian Schnell, who stars as Dr. Hans Reinhardt, chews up the scenery. That's what I meant before. But the robot Maximilian is just there. So I got to be careful when referring to that. From now on, I'm going to call Schnell by his character name Reinhardt, and we'll talk about Maximilian, because I got to say though. And something, about Maximilian, is the one payoff. Because again, I didn't remember anything in this movie. I got a payoff that I wanted involving Vincent and Maximilian. I got my payoff. Robot fight.
That robot fight was something special.
It was still payoff. It was still set up and payoff. Where
absolutely.
They're on the ship, and we're just going to jump. We'll dive right into it. We'll double back a little bit when they get on the ship and they're going through introductions. And here's Reinhardt giving their speech, and Maximilian is just imposing the evil robot comes down, and Vincent, who feels like, I'm old school, but I'm awesome, and they just get face to face, nose to nose, essentially. And it's let's fight right now, and everybody's like, no, let's not do this. And then we get it at the end after Maximilian takes out Bob, and then you got Vincent and Maximilian just go at it. For considering their designs, pretty damn hardcore. Laser, they're shooting each other. Vincent's accuracy shoots off Maximilian's own lasers, and then it's hand-to-hand melee combat where Maximilian thinks he's got Bob caught up with the electric shock, but then Bob says, I have a drill in my gut. I'm going to drill through you. And then we're going to have weird robot crying as he drifts into space.
Which, that scene doesn't makes sense in the film, whereas it does in the book. They're not in a enclosed environment. Maximilian, and then a few minutes later, Pizer nearly float away into the black hole. But how is everyone breathing? How is everyone not dead from depressurization? In the book, they explained it. There was a reason. It wasn't just an open shell environment like it was in the film. I was blown away by that. It's like, they're all dead. They're just walking around on the outside of the ship.
Sam 8000 for $2. What the hell? What the fuck was that ending? Did they go to hell? We're gonna talk about that. We're gonna talk about the ending at the end. We don't want to. I know we jump around. We'll say, but thank you, Sam McDowell, for $2. We will talk about that again. That's the metaphysical. There's a huge metaphysical aspect to the end of that movie that we'll discuss there. But let's go through it. So, Jed, why don't you start us off so I stop jumping around? What's going on when we begin this movie?
All right, so the film follows this small crew of explorers. They're part of several different expeditions like their own, who are just supposed to go out 18 months, explore as much as they can, find alien life, find alien planets, and then come back, or whatever they can find. It's just purely an exploration mission. And when they turn around and start heading back towards Earth, they come across the Cygnus, which is a predecessor to theirs from 20 years ago. That was a massive, massive endeavor. The first of its kind, a exploration vessel that could house thousands of people, supposedly. It's just utterly enormous, but it vanished. So it was one of the great mysteries of their time, is what happened to the Cygnus. It was supposedly called back, but it never returned. And what makes it even weirder is this seemingly ghost ship that's been missing for 20 years is in orbit of a black hole, which at that proximity shouldn't be possible. So this crew goes in to investigate the Cygnus and see what the hell's happening, what happened to the crew, how's it orbiting the black hole, and that's where the adventure begins.
Yeah, and they get damaged, so they have to fix their ship. And you've got let's go through. I want to get their names right. We've got Captain Dan. We've got Dr. Alex, who is I'm just gonna call him Norman Bates for the rest of the show here. Got Norman. We got Norman Bates. We got Lieutenant Pizer, and we got Dr. Kate, and we got Ernest Borgnine. I'm gonna call him Ernest Borgnine because he's freaking Ernest Borgnine.
With the characters, the only one that surprised me was Alex Durant, the Dr. Norman Bates, because in the book, he's purely described as kind of young, but just starstruck with Reinhold, which we eventually do see, but he seemed way more immature, closer in age to Charlie Pfizer than to the captain, Captain Holland. But besides that, the book did a really good job capturing these characters. But
I haven't read the book. How was how are the personifications in the movie comparable after Durant to everybody else's? Is it a fair translation of how they are?
The book, I think, is significantly better. Like the book is 100%. I recommend the book. I don't know if I can recommend the movie though. And yeah, the book.
I mean, here's where I want to go with this. It's one of the things I have criticism. Harry's betrayal at the end in the third act, is that built up better in the book? Because I don't feel like it was built up well in the movie. Because he just seems like a goofball in the movie, and I'm not even sure why he's there. What purpose does he serve on that crew?
They go into that in the book a lot more, and why he's there. He's a reporter. He's there to document any.
See, they mention that he's writing this, but I don't actually remember them saying, "I'm a reporter." In the movie.
Yeah, no, he's a reporter who this is where one of my biggest problems with both the film and the book come into play, is the massive coincidence that the ship that finds the Cygnus has two people with personal connections to it.
And a guy who knows Reinhardt.
And he knows Reinhardt well. They don't go into it in the film that much, but Booth was one of Reinhardt's largest critics back on Earth. He nearly single-handedly brought down the Cygnus project. Like, he was very much antagonistic. Really? They were familiar with each other, and they hated each other. Like, it was... they mentioned that they've only met a couple times. Like, they've interviewed before, but they knew of each other to a gargantuan degree. And that personal connection... I'm not a fan of coincidences like that. I wish there would have been some reason. Like, did Reinhardt draw them in? Did he want them there for some reason? That would have helped explain away some of that for me. But, yeah, Harry Booth was... a lot better in the book. I love the actor who played him. He's been in several things that I've seen.
Borgnine. He's Ernest Borgnine. I mean, everybody knows.
But they set up his betrayal at the end a lot more. They explain it a lot more because he specifically tells Charlie, "Hey, that dive, I busted up my leg," and Charlie's even suspicious. He's like, "I didn't see you get shot. Did a laser bolt hit you? I didn't see anything." He's like, "No, I just dove."
The movie just says, "Yeah, I take your word for it. I'm going to run off."
Yeah, Charlie is suspicious of him, but more concerned with the safety of his crewmates. But yeah, there's just so much more development, and that's not something that I've been able to say all the time. Like the Alien book versus the movie, yes, there's more information in the book, but I think the movie's better. when it comes to this, the book is far and away
More
superior.
often than not, I like Legatus just said in the chat, I always lean towards the novelizations of stuff if I have read it or if I've read it before the film comes out, because a lot of times it's better. I mean, when we did Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, I said I liked the book better than the movie because I read the book before the movie came out. As a big Turtle fan, I was really getting hyped for it. And that I'm not surprised that there's more lead up to Harry Booth's betrayal, because it just feels out of nowhere. Yeah, I didn't, because up until then it feels as though he's on board with everybody. He's sharing the information. He's not hiding anything. And then all of a sudden, when the shit hits the fan, oh, I'm gonna F off. I'm gonna F off. Now we know he was doomed because we had heard Reinhardt say, as soon as the ship detaches, blow it out of the sky. So we knew it was doomed. But still, I felt there wasn't enough setup for that in the movie.
Well, and there was more setup with him being able to do that at all, because at the beginning of the film, he's asking a ton of questions of how does the ship work? How do you do this? How do you pilot this? Like, he's constantly asking questions, but he's still never actually done it. So as soon as he takes off, he doesn't know how to control it, and it's about to crash. And that's why Reinhold fires on him prematurely and ends up damaging his own ship in the process. Yeah. But yeah, they go to a lot more to justify that.
Yeah, but so let's go back to the beginning. Everybody's in there. They're going through. Here's again one of my small criticisms. The movie's only an hour 37 minutes. It's not massively long, and it gets the job done in its time frame. But I still think they could have shaved 10, 15 minutes off the movie in terms of some of the time elapses from one point to another. I felt that just small moments of dragging on where I'm losing interest and I'm not paying attention, because I'm waiting for them to come to these conclusions and to search shit out. And it's the second act. The first act is fine, where introductory, we get everything, even though I feel like there are pieces missing. Part of it, the whole ESP thing, it's just, you've got ESP, okay.
They blow right past it. No, in the book, they talk about her having the surgery, why she made these decisions.
Okay, thank you. I want to know. Oh, you just have ESP and you can communicate with robots with your ESP.
There's a chip in her head. There's a chip in her head.
Okay, all right. These are the things why I'm taking points off for my score, because they're just telling me things with no explanation. And we're not talking, we need modern day exposition. Oh, we're doing this, we're doing that. No, back then
there's a difference.
They were capable in the 70s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s. They were capable of weaving in information dumps in an entertaining and non-dumpy sort of way. So, all right, so she has a chip in her head, and it's artificial ESP. It's not supernatural.
It's designed to talk to computers.
Then why do they call it ESP?
I'm not sure why they made that choice.
They call it ESP as a science fiction fantasy guy with a fantasy background. I'm thinking supernatural. I'm thinking psychic. I'm not thinking chip, and I'm thinking to myself during this movie, why is she only able to communicate with the robot with ESP? I don't know.
Well, that leads into the finale a little bit. So during the finale, something different happens. We'll get there. But the ESP actually plays a part in how the book ends versus how the film ends. Like in the film, her ESP is virtually non-mentioned as soon as they get into the black hole.
Okay, yes. Well,
the black hole, the ESP does something. It's important to how the book ends.
Again, we'll come back to Sam 8000 super chat to. I'll bring it back up when we cover the ending there, but there's no words in the ending. It's just anyway. Right. So the ESP thing, thank you for explaining that. I was curious about that, having not read the book.
Oh yeah, the film doesn't explain it, and I noticed that. That's something that happens throughout it. Like, they just don't explain anything. There's a difference between good exposition and bad exposition. Anyone who's a writer knows the difference, and this film just is opting for very little good exposition, and instead just randomly characters like Reinhold monologuing everything that's going on.
That too, and also I feel as though you already told me one thing between Booth and Reinhardt, there's a relationship. I feel like, again, in the movie, we're missing relationship connections between the rest of the crew, between Dr. Kate and Captain Dan. Is there something going on there?
That's just in the movie. The romantic angle that I noticed in the film, that's not in the book.
Okay, it's not in the book. Okay.
Not that I noticed, at least. But other relationships were developed a lot more. My favorite relationship is between Charlie and Vincent. Vincent, who I think is the best character.
Vincent's Vincent's the best in this movie. And did you know, voiced by Roddy McDowall, uncredited in the movie.
Really?
Yeah, that adds to the cast. Roddy McDowall was doing the voice of Vincent, which that elevates it. That's why Vincent is good, because you have a great actor doing a great voice work. And because Vincent can't emote. He can emote through some gestures or rotating his head, but it required let's just say the elegance of Roddy McDowall to give us the emotions, the feelings of Vincent. Vincent is the best character. You are absolutely right. He's honestly, Vincent is what really saves this movie for me, because he's amusing the entire time. He's our hero. Vincent's our hero. Vincent's our hero because no one else could take on Maximilian. And that's the...
Well, no, it's way more than that. He's not just the physical hero. He's the one who develops a relationship with Bob to give them the last pieces of information. They can't solve the mystery of the film. They can't escape the film to the degree that they do. Like, everything is because of Vincent. Vincent's like the only person taking a lot of initiative and succeeding. Yes, we see Harry walk away and find the botanical garden. We see Holland walk away and find the robot funeral.
See the funeral,
Yeah, walking away and accidentally seeing something is nowhere near on the level of initiative and plot progression that Vincent provides. Vincent's the main character. I'm
right there with you. Yeah, because
his heroics are bigger in the books, especially when their ship initially starts to get damaged when they're going to the Cygnus. With the Palomino, is going to the Cygnus, and he goes outside and latches back on. Do you remember that part of the film?
Yes.
That sequence is massively extended, and he's doing way more, and it's definitely more heroic.
They don't survive without Vincent.
No, God, no.
I mean,
not even from the very beginning.
Yeah, you take Vincent out. He is the, and I hate to use this term, he's the key to everything in terms of survival. He's not key to all the answers, but he's the key to everything. He is their protector. He's their conscience in some way too. And he's their guide because he keeps them grounded. Let's not get lost in this direction of wondering and this and that. Let's stay focused on the here and now. And then, of course, as I said, the robot fight. I do love the robot fight. As cheesy as it is, I do love it. I do like it. That's again, Vincent saves the movie with that kind of stuff because you get the payoff of him actually. Anyway, so they get on the ship. They first think it's abandoned. They don't understand what they're seeing with the robots. And then we get the introduction of Reinhardt. And
I have problems with Reinhardt.
Okay. Now, let's say for that. Maximilian Schell's performance, top notch. Top notch performance. Because he is into it. He goes full camp. And when you go full camp, you get nothing but respect for me because that means you're taking it seriously. You are trying to be this megalomaniac, God-playing scientist who doesn't care about humanity. But there is one line, but we'll get to in a little bit. There's one thing, that, again, I think you'll be able to tell me between book and movie, something might have been missing. All right, but so what are your problems with Reinhardt in the movie?
So, again, this is a massive bias on my part when it comes to the film versus the book. But in the book, he's described very differently. From the moment they see him, they specifically point out that his hair and his beard are perfectly groomed. That's a big deal because they're like, he's out here on his own. So this isn't about appearances for him. This is about him being a strict and stringent person. He's always very detail oriented. And they deduce a lot about him because of how perfect he looks. And it gets a little bit better in the film once he starts to wear that weird red uniform. But when we first see him, he's disheveled. He's wearing a lab coat. His beard and hair's all messy, and he's just mad scientist. And like it was a lot more interesting when he was like, "Yes, I'm out here on my own. Yes, I'm the only human being for a significant amount of space, but I am still on a mission. I'm still focused on what I'm doing. I'm still determined to put the best presentation forward." And that meant a lot for the character.
And when you take it on the surface level, before you realize the horrible things he's done to get to this point in his research and his journey, it seems as though you want to believe what he's doing. He's looking for new life. He's looking for a new reality. He's looking for other stuff, and he will not be stopped. he's determined, and there's respect for that. But then you learn what he did to the crew and everything as though, and you also, as these speeches go on, as he basically enthralls Norman Bates into following him, you realize you're dealing with a madman. You're dealing with somebody, and here's the problem, though. And again, I'm going to step aside from the story to one of my criticisms, back to the science. When they made this book, because they mention it, during one of the conversations when him and Durant are talking about, we have to account for a possible Einstein-Rosenberg bridge. Translation, wormhole. That's what a wormhole is. I think that at the basis of this right now, the movie conflates black holes and wormholes, and they're combining the scientific thing, because it feels like at the end, and we'll talk about it, you're basically going through a wormhole at the end. You're not going through a black hole. You're going through a wormhole, as we would commonly in current science fiction knowledge basically describe that as. And when the movie loses me when they start talking about the science, and it shows me somebody did their research, but then they said, fuck it, I'm going to combine these two things and hope that the audience doesn't know.
Right.
But unfortunately, 40 years later, I've seen Stargate and I know. So,
well, his motivation for going into the wormhole was different in the book as well. So it was way more focused on Einstein's theory of relativity, the idea that the stronger the gravity, the slower time moves.
Yeah, and they completely removed time dilation from this.
Oh no, that's a big part of it.
Wait, so that was in the book?
Yes.
Oh no,
that's a big part of the book, because that's why he's doing it. He says, when I go down there, I'm going to become immortal. And Kate's like, that's just relativity. With relativity, you might live, thousands of years back on Earth, but you've still got a normal human lifespan within that dilation. So you're not going to be immortal. It's just going to dilate your time. And he said, his theory was that at that level of compressed gravity, relativity will be so strong that it pierces the veil into the fifth dimension, where he can live perpetually free of time. That way he can be immortal and continue out his experiments forever. He can be the genius. He can be unconstrained by a human lifespan to accomplish all his goals and desires.
That changes that. I'm taking more points off now, because I'm thinking, why aren't we talking about relativity in this? Why aren't we talking about time dilation at all? That isn't coming up. Well, maybe that's why I said this at the beginning of the stream. Did they know the science? Well, the book obviously knew the science. It knew the science, or as the chat says right now, the supposed science of it. But either way, the movie ignored it, and that's not good. That's not good. I do not like that they ignored it when it should have played a theory. And Andy Pickle, I see what you're talking about there, but for the sake of the movie, I'm not going to go into black hole versus pulsar exit point. I can't possibly do that one, because I don't know the science exactly. But I'm letting you know that I do see what you're talking about there. Still, damn.
Yeah, see what I mean? The book is just a lot better. It makes more sense.
Yeah, everything made more sense. Now it makes sense. Because in the movie, he's talking about looking for a source of energy, and he's looking for another reality where he could be God. That's what the movie's talking about. Oh dear. Right. Well, let's continue on. The second act, the first act is fine, as I said. Everybody's introducing themselves. Kate's wondering if her dad is still there, and they're trying to solve the mystery. The problem is the second act, where they're solving the mystery,
it just meanders.
That's a perfect word for it. It meanders.
No, it moves on at a quick pace in the book. Like, there's a lot going on. They cut out some more investigations. But yeah, in the film, it's just like, yep, it's a robot funeral. Yep. Oh, we're still here. Oh, great.
Garden. Okay, we're going to play target shooting with the robots. Vincent and Bob are going to be fun.
But all those things are part of the book, but they're presented in a much better way.
They're going to be fun, but then we're going to cut back to the humans walking along, talking, and not getting anywhere quickly, or drawing out conversations about evolution and shit like that. You know?
Yeah. No, it made a lot more sense, and it also gave an opportunity to develop things more, like the robot shooting range. That was developed so much more because it's not just a shooting range. In the book, it was when they opened the door, it was a blast of just unbearable light that the humans had to turn away from, and it's a full arcade in there. It's full of recreation, whether or not it's human recreation or not. There's pool tables in there. There's arcade machines, and they go into the psychology of robots of why this place is necessary. And like the robots degrade if they don't have recreation, just like humans are. So there's been science and research done into that. So there's a lot of interesting stuff that you just can't do in a film, especially one this short. But
the arcade stuff serves to introduce Bob, which is a welcome character. Bob with his cowboy accent, which is
they didn't mention a cowboy accent in the book. That surprised me.
Well, I'm still sort of okay with it. That's one thing I want to jump back to. I forgot to mention before. The movie takes a very interesting take on what the future looks like in terms of nationality, because when they're trying to identify the Cygnus, they're going through different nationality starships. And in the future, it ain't Star Trek in this version. Everybody is still, it's not a united Earth. It's still different countries setting up their own crap out into the galaxy. And I find that an interesting take, because it's the time we're still in the middle of the Cold War, and to take a different path from Star Trek. And I don't reference Star Wars because Star Wars is in our galaxy, but they take a different path from Star Trek to be a parallel, I guess, because Star Trek was just getting revived at this point with the motion picture. It was just starting up again. I found that interesting. Oh, we have it's not a Japanese ship, it's not a Russian ship, it's not an English ship. Oh, it's an American ship. And I found that an interesting take at the time, that they were still putting nationalistic tendencies on everything. So I just wanted to point that out, that I found that interesting at the beginning. But all right, so we're in the middle here. We get the whole now. Let's just go quickly over the whole what's going on thing. We already mentioned the witnessing of the robot funeral, the botanical garden. Vincent and Bob form their relationship, and Bob's trust is earned, and he reveals what's going on, and we get the revelation that Reinhardt murdered everybody and turned them all into essentially cyborgs. They don't use the word, but cyborgs, including Kate's father, who was the lone person that tried to stop him, and they couldn't quite get it done. And there we are now. He spent the rest of the time doing this. But there's one thing I'm asking this now. I'm coming back to, like I said I would. Right when we're getting the revelations, it's basically end of the second act, beginning of the third act. We're getting revelations where we're learning that Reinhardt's done, and Vincent is using his ESP with Kate, and she's learning stuff. When Kate, after the murder of Norman Bates, where Maximilian just goes out of control and kills him, gangs him. I find that funny that Norman Bates gets murdered. I find that amusing. Reinhardt says, "You have to protect me from Maximilian."
Yeah, that was weird. That stuck out like a sore thumb. He's where did that
come from? Oh. Where did that come from?
That's
not in the book at all. Oh, okay, no. Not in the book. Okay. That I feel as though maybe somebody shot a scene and edited it out.
There's something missing there.
Didn't, because when we come back, there's no fear of Maximilian, and when you look at the end of the movie, there's definitely no fear of Maximilian. So okay, all right, there.
I was so confused about that when that moment came up in the film. There's a scene missing here. Why is he saying that? There's no reason I could think of why.
All right, then we don't know.
It is brought back a little bit later in the film, which isn't in the book either, is when he gets crushed by the screen, Max turns around and sees him crushed.
He's already leaving. The door is closing. Well, I do want to talk about that scene. I do want to talk about that.
That's not in the book. He doesn't see that happen at all. So I'm wondering if, Protect Me from Max is a setup for that scene where because Max does turn and face him before the screen's closed. He sees him before the door's closed.
He does.
So he's consciously leaving him.
I want to talk about that scene, but let's get to that chronologically.
Okay.
The crew, our hero crew, they are now trying to get the hell out of there.
Mm-hmm.
Everything goes to hell, and in the book, Was there a meteor shower as well in the book? Did that happen in the book?
Yes, there was a meteor shower, but it was set up far in
Thank you.
advance.
Thank you. Those meteors came out of nowhere. They tore through.
And those were weird looking meteors.
Okay. First of all, these shouldn't even be meteors. They should be comets because that's even meteor astro. I don't know. The rolling ball of fire, Indiana Jones style, down the corridor.
Oh, we said Indiana Jones as well, Rachel and I.
Mind you, though, we're a year away from Indiana Jones, so this did it first. We give them this. This did it before Indiana Jones, at least.
But yeah, no, that didn't make any
sense. It was probably filming at this time,
Mm-hmm.
but we didn't see it yet. There, that didn't make any sense.
In the book, long before the even banquet scene, Reinhardt was aware that the meteor storm was coming, but he's like, our shields are going to take care of it. They're small. It's not going to be a big deal. And it's only because of the crash of the Palomino, because of Booth, that led toward them being vulnerable to the meteor shower. And it wasn't anything to that degree. It was just like, hey, they're getting hit. But it's not like a giant ball of fire rolling through the middle of the ship, though. But yeah, no, they were like, we're aware of it. Not an issue since we're at full power. Oh, shit. Something's crashed into us. We're at low power and we're vulnerable. Yeah. And then they started getting hit.
All right. Algrim's going to try and give us some color to what we're talking about. Protecting for myself. That was the meaning of his coldness as creator, is undangerously rejected in his most powerful creation. The movie doesn't establish it enough, though, for me. That asking her to protect him from Maximilian, they didn't do enough setup for that. If that was where they were going to go, the setup wasn't there for me anyway.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree with that. That concept is interesting. Like, Reinhold created this robot that's no longer his control. He's violent. He's unpredictable.
That's a classic theme.
Yeah, it's Frankenstein's monster.
Yeah.
And they do reference Frankenstein a few times with Maximilian, but they can't just do one line and be like, oh, yep, totally set up, totally paid off, we're good to go. No, it's the start of an idea, but they didn't go anywhere with it, so it stands out.
Honestly, that would have made the movie better if, let's just say, I'm spitballing here. This is me starting to just run with an idea. What if it had been revealed that Reinhardt himself was no longer human, but a robot as well, and Maximilian was the one controlling him instead of him in control? That would have been that full circle type of thing where his semblance of what used to be Reinhardt's consciousness would have remained in the robot or the cyborg. Protect me. If they had gone down that kind of storyline, that would have been interesting, and that line would have made a ton of sense of, I'm no longer in control. I'm not even the man I was. This murder machine is now what's controlling everything, and he's operating on my original. He's operating on my original intent, and now that I'm a cyborg, not in control, I don't want this anymore. That would have been an interesting path, but of course, that's just basically fanfic writing on the spot. This. So I'm just saying that feels as though that's a thing. And yeah, and Pickle, you're right. We have done that episode on Star Trek Engage. We've done that episode. It was a good one. But you understand exactly what I'm saying. That would have made it more interesting. But he's still human as far as we know. So the asteroids come in. Everything's fallen apart. Those asteroids should have done way more damage to that ship than it even did. That thing should have pear-shaped. When that giant one, that thing should have sliced the entire ship in half in that moment. Where, they show when they're going through the garden and the atmosphere is gone and the vacuum's happening. They do attribute the fact that they're losing atmosphere in the ship, but the way the ship looked, design and interior, I feel as though they just ignored a lot of stuff.
Oh, 100%. It's inconsistent in the film, the way that the ship is designed.
Now, I give the film credit for its heroism that we get in the third act, where Kate's going to be turned into a robot. Captain Dan's going to rush in there. Hero moment. I dig it. That's cool stuff. Although him fighting the robot on the conveyor belt.
That scene, all the action in this film is incredibly cheesy.
It's stilted. There's no need for
and the music repeats the same 10 notes.
Again, we're gonna get the John Barry soundtrack very soon. We're almost there. We have to talk about John Barry's soundtrack. But we get heroism every save. Vincent saves the day, and then right when they're getting to Reinhardt, what I find interesting is that everybody realizes the ship is doomed. Get to the probe ship. And
which they don't set up in the film. The probe ship, they explain.
I was like, what is the probe ship? That's what I'm asking.
So they specifically talk about it. Is Reinhardt fit the probe ship with the same gravitational field tech that the Cygnus has? So this probe ship went to the black hole, went to the event horizon, said, "Hey, it's safe right now. Conditions are good. You can go in right now." But it's basically a small version of the Cygnus. It is 100% safe to go fly, and it's got full power, full shields. So if the asteroid storm comes back, it'll be protected against that because of its shield. But yeah, that ship was explained a lot more. And that's another thing, really quickly here. The ship design, I'm not a fan of. Especially the Palomino. I think the Palomino looks awful.
Yeah, well, they're going on 1960s spaceships. They didn't try to sci-fi. Well,
again, Star Trek was 10 years before this. Star Wars was 2 years before this. Well, Star Trek was way more than 10 years. And Doctor Who had already come along at this point over in the UK. Like, there'd been sci-fi before to be like, let's get a cylinder on a tripod. The Cygnus looks better.
That had a unique design.
The Cygnus was good, but everything else was subpar.
Yeah. The Cygnus looks like something. Everything else looks like, frankly, Apollo 11.
Very much so.
Looked like Apollo 11.
And the Apollo 11 that you're thinking of was just the landing gear for the moon itself.
But we get to the whole everything's falling apart. We've already talked about Vincent versus Maximilian, which again I'm doing it.
You said again?
Again. I've done it other times. I'm trying to gloss over it, but I keep doing it. I'm terrible. This is the third week in a row. Something wrong with me. Chat, mock me. I demand to be mocked.
It's okay. I use just a lot when I write.
Yeah, but you can edit that out. We're live.
I can't. I can't edit that out.
I can't edit that out. I just look like an idiot. Anywho, I do enjoy the payoff and the setup that Vincent got to fight Maximilian, and we didn't have a human try to fight the robot. I'm glad we got that. And then then Vincent and Bob's farewell. Thanks for proving that we are the best. Our design robot, we are still the best. We're the oldest, we're the greatest. I dig that. It's the respect thing. Let's talk about before that fight, though. We brought up a couple minutes ago, Reinhardt's not his death scene, because he doesn't die, at least not in the movie. His, how do I put this? His trap scene where the entire bridge falls apart. That is profound. And that's where the movie gets points from me. It's a profound moment because you're watching as a man is trapped by his own creation and then ignored by his other creations, which he forced in a mad scientist way. Somebody help me. Can't you help me? And because he programmed them to be these perfect things to do his bidding, they don't have the emotion. They don't have the wherewithal or the ability to help him. Maximilian did, but in the movie, he doesn't stop leaving. He just leaves him there to die. And until the entire thing explodes or implodes, it doesn't exactly implode, it kind of just falls apart. He's trapped there mumbling, "Help me, someone help me." It's profound, and I appreciate the whole idea of a creation turning on its master. How do you feel about that whole scene then?
Oh yeah, that idea of him taking it too far. It's the consequences of his own decisions leading to his end. I very much agree with you. I think it's again better in the book because he does actually die there, and Maximilian doesn't consciously leave him behind. He's just already gone by the time he gets trapped. But yeah, no, that concept is a common one, like you've said, but it's played out very well in that scene. Just hearing him mumble, "Please help me, help me." In that moment of death, he's more human than he's ever been, and he's demanding his machines be human once again. But because he never knew what humanity really was, he couldn't program that into them.
Exactly, that's well put. He didn't understand what the soul was, and he took some, I would say, pleasure in destroying the soul.
Oh, 100%.
To create his perfect machines. We leave him trapped there. Everybody, after some heroics from Vincent, they get to the probe ship, and here we are at the ending. And we'll bring up Sam 8000 super chat again. Now that we are talking about the ending, Sam 8000 for $2. What the fuck was that ending? Did they go to hell?
It looks like it, and then the others went to heaven.
It looks. There it is. As I said, the people behind this movie, in my opinion, went with what Andy Pickle mentioned in the chat earlier. They went with the idea that perhaps a black hole is a wormhole with an endpoint someplace else. And they treated it like a wormhole without the time dilation. So that I struggled with that scene. First of all, the gravity should have ripped them apart.
They do have a gravity shield.
They don't. Oh, they mention it. They do mention it, don't they?
No,
but again,
the probe has already been to the event horizon.
Okay, but again, that's the movie not giving me enough information on how the technology works. Yeah.
So yeah, it's the way he describes it in the book is it's not nullifying the gravity. It's like putting a rock in a wave of water. It just pushes it to the side. And it pushes it at an angle, and as the gravity increases, the angle at which you can put it off narrows. So his theory is either when the shield is taxed to its fullest inside the black hole, either they'll be crushed, or more likely, as he put it, it's like, have you ever tried to hold a peanut in your hand, but you don't crush it? What happens when you try to squeeze a peanut? It shoots away from you. That was his theory, is that they'd just be shot out of the black hole if the field collapses under too much gravitational weight.
The movie needed more explanation, because that
100%.
I understand. I understand exactly what you just said. And now that makes sense. But they go through the black hole, and while our survivors, go through the black hole, in the movie, Reinhardt is still alive, floating in space, and suddenly his hair is about 2 feet longer, and his beard's a foot longer,
and it's all white.
He runs into Maximilian in the vacuum, and then magically they're merged, and then they're in hell, ruling in hell, with a bunch of people trudging along. What the fuck just happened? Are we saying that our good guys died and went to heaven, and Maximilian died and went to hell?
Well, that's what it looked like at first, and then they came out the other side in the probe ship and were totally fine.
There were pearly gates. In the movie, there was a literal pearly gate with an angel.
Yeah. And then they were totally just normal in space flying around.
And we're somewhere else. Heading towards...
Oh, yeah. The ending makes zero sense, either in the book or the film, with the technology, the shield. So, yeah, in the book, what happens, it's the same setup, except for Reinhardt and everyone in the Cygnus is dead, crushed, destroyed. The probe ship has those same characters in it. And when they go down there, still very, very weird. Their consciences meld together, and their atoms are spread through the entire universe, and they are the universe, but they're still their individual selves communicating with each other through the ESP. So they can still communicate. They're individuals, but they're the whole universe. They're separate. Wow. They're apart. They're every atom that ever existed, and still themselves.
And that's how it ends in the book?
Mm-hmm.
They don't...
It's weird.
I'm not a fan of this type of stuff. You guys know I like my conclusions. I like my endings. I don't like ambiguous endings. I like something I can get my head around, and this metaphysical stuff strains me.
In certain ambiguous endings, when they're set up properly, I'm okay with. Like the Joker and Inception. Those are two great ambiguous endings.
Completely different. This is, we tried to get very spiritually metaphysical on you at the end of a science fiction movie with a lot of choral chanting and no concluding dialogue and two different comparative things. One people going to heaven, and the other dude merged with his robot ruling in hell. He got his wish. He found another place where he could be a ruler or command. It loses me.
Oh, yeah.
It loses me.
But in the end, don't work. they had something good there. Like, if you want to have them escape, have a happy ending where they escape and they might make it back to Earth. Like, even if, like, the end of the original Alien film, where it's like, they're in a rough situation, but they have a chance to make it home and tell their story. That's an ambiguous ending that I'm okay with. Or they go into the black hole and Reinhardt's mission is a lie, or he was wrong, and they all die.
Or we don't know.
Or we don't know. It just like fades to black.
That's an ambiguous ending I can accept because that's the true unknown.
And someone watching would have no idea what happened to them once they went into the black hole. There's no way to follow up on that. So
well, hey, listen, if it was modern day Disney, we'd get Black Hole 2, Maximilian's Revenge. If this was modern day Disney, we would get that. So anywho, listen, I am not pleased with the ending, but even though the ending is really weird, the rest of the movie still kind of holds up with the way it's structured.
I would agree.
I'd love to know why they chose to do that. Then again, you just told me the book ending. The book ending isn't any more satisfying to me.
No, it's less weird, I think, personally, but yeah, no, it comes out of left field. It's literally like the last page and a half.
Now,
like, they're going into the black hole, weird shit for a page and a half, and it's over.
I had a really guy thought at the end of this. They're stuck who knows where in the universe. Not just say galaxy, we'll say universe. I'm not gonna say another reality. They were spit out someplace else. They're obviously heading towards what looks like a planet. Two guys, one chick, and a robot. Somebody's gonna be left out. They ain't starting a new society at all. Okay, there you go.
Well, Charlie and Vincent seem to have a close personal relationship. They'll be happy together.
No,
if this is a Disney remake.
Oh, if it's a Disney, if it's a modern day Disney, they're fine. You know, Captain Dan and Kate, they're going to be good, and Charlie's going to get pegged by Vincent. So that's modern day Disney. But this
he's gonna rearrange his guts just like he did Maximilian's.
Oh no. Oh, goodness gracious me. Oh, my. We just got demonetized. Anyway, I don't know. Wait, we get limited lately on this for some reason, but the re-upload is perfectly fine. I don't get it. Really weird. Right. We've talked about the movie. Now we can't not talk about John Barry's soundtrack. John Barry, composer for James Bond. And I heard it in every single scene of this movie. I'm waiting for Sean Connery or Roger Moore, because that's the era of this type of music. I'm waiting for them to come around the corner, especially Roger Moore after Moonraker. I'm waiting for that to happen. John Barry made a weird-ass soundtrack that gets a little campy during the hero moments when Captain Dan's going to save Kate, or when Charlie
It's a good song, but out of place.
Yeah, dun, 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 something like that. Dun, 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 dun. It's just, wow, we've gone from this long, drudging, very sad, melancholy theme of music to dun, 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 and it seems out of place. And I gotta wonder, what was John Barry trying to accomplish with this? Because some of it works, except the repetition, the repetitive tone that got to me. That main theme tone, I really didn't like that. It bugged me.
I liked it the first once or twice I heard it.
They kept repeating it over and over again. The soundtrack works at moments and then doesn't work in other moments. That's the best way I can put it.
It's a little bit schizophrenic.
Yeah, and you lose points. And this is John Barry. A guy knows he's up there. He's up there in the greats talk. But this is, I think this wasn't his type of movie he could score. I don't think this is a John Williams thing. This is a Jerry Goldsmith thing. This isn't a John Barry thing. And so any disagreement on that?
Oh, no, I agree. It felt out of place most of the time. Some of it was good. Like, I did like the theme at first, so there was something there. It's just applied in the wrong situations.
Yeah.
Like, that fight scene is a perfect example when Dan and the others rescue Kate from the hospital. That music is wholly out of place.
Exactly. Well, there we have it. Jed, closing thoughts on the black hole.
It's a strange film. I think, just like I said at the beginning, there's a good meat to this film. There's a lot of potential to it, which makes it perfect for a remake. If you're gonna make a new film, remake an old film, do it for something like The Black Hole. Don't do it with something like Snow White,
Little Mermaid.
Yeah, Little Mermaid. Just don't do it with classics that are beloved, that everyone's seen, everybody knows, and most people consider near perfect. Do it with something like this, where there's a really great idea somewhere buried in there, but for extenuating circumstances that aren't necessarily anyone's fault,
yeah,
it can be done better. So, yeah, I am gonna rate this lower than people would expect. I can 100% recommend the book. The book I give like an 8 out of 10. I really love the book. 100% recommended. The film, on the other hand, once we get to the rating, is going to be a lot.
Give your rating. Give your rating. You go first. It's your week.
All right, perfect. So yeah, the saving grace of this film, like we said, is Vincent. Vincent is lovable. His design was weird to me at first. It was very off-putting at first, but once we got a little bit more of the quirky personality that it offered, he really grew on me after that. And the characters were interesting enough for the most part, but Vincent's by far the best. But then there you come issues with the logic of the situation, the lack of exposition when it's needed, some inconsistencies like with Reinhold asking Kate to be saved from Maximilian. There's just a lot of little flaws that erode the foundation enough that I have to give this, and I feel like I'm being more generous than I should, a 6 out of 10.
Okay, 6 out of 10. You've mentioned some of my criticisms, the lack of proper exposition, well-organized exposition, which can be good if it explains things, helps us understand things. Movie loses points for the in that. It drags on in the second act for me. I feel as though there's a lot of characterization missing for a bunch of the characters and their relationships, which you have pointed out to me is missing from the book to this. But in the end, though, you've got a well-cast, well-acted movie. Everybody performs great. We didn't really talk about the characters' actor performances because the story is more interesting than talking about that little individual aspects. But everybody gives a good performance. The overall story is a compelling mystery story for most of it. You want to know what's going on, although predictable. You pretty much realize right away the people were turned into robots. That's a given. The surprise, as I said, that Vincent is so likable. Roddy McDowall gives an outstanding performance to bring him to life. I think that's why Vincent works, because Roddy McDowall nails it. I got my payoff. You guys know I love my payoff, my good setup and payoff. We got a robot fight. As 1970s as it was, I like it. I liked it. I enjoyed it. We got a winner, good versus evil. And there's a thing, too. Despite the fact that there's a lot of metaphysical talk, there's a very clear dividing line, good versus evil in this story, and good lives, we'll just say. Good doesn't necessarily beat evil, but good lives. And or the movie sort of lives. I don't know. However you want to interpret
it's weird. I don't even know if we can say that.
I know.
In either ending.
But the movie is still solid. Yeah, I would say it's worth a watch so that you can say, I've seen this movie and I can have a conversation about it. Because this movie is worth having a conversation about, to see, especially considering, as I said earlier in the stream, where it's placed in science fiction, fantasy, movie history. It is right after Star Wars. Star Trek, as you pointed out, has existed for 20 years almost at this point. It's about to make its big return with the motion picture. You have things like Battlestar Galactica. We didn't mention there's other big franchises that exist. Battlestar Galactica. You mentioned Doctor Who. There's a lot for this line up against. And this was Disney trying to break into it with, I guess, an original idea, original property. But I don't think they quite figured out the equation at this time. They didn't. Whoever adapted the book, as you've pointed out, left things out that would have made it much more.
Well, the book was the novelization. The book came later.
Okay.
It's Alan Dean Foster. Same situation as Alien or this original Star Wars novelization.
Okay. Well, then you know what? Well, either way, then the book does better. And there's a lot missing. There's a lot we want to understand. And here's the thing: we want to enjoy this movie. That's the thing. We both made it clear we want to enjoy this movie. There's a lot we're pulled in by it, but the movie seems to not want to engage us fully. It doesn't want to give us that full satisfaction, but it's still something you can find entertainment in. as I said, so that you've seen it, you understand it, you know it's out there. But there are those who are diehards for it, and you know what? I could see why. I could see why. It's a good versus evil story. There's no agenda in this whatsoever, except no, there is no agenda in this. There's none. It's just a classic themes all over the place. Well done. And that's what I say. The themes are executed well. Megalomania, man creation, God, man wanting to be God, man losing control. All the themes are executed very well, which is why in the end, I'm going to give this a 7 out of 10 because it's a good movie, just missing a lot of things to make it a great movie. And that's where we're going to leave it. We have next week's movie ready to go. Next week, my friends, we will be watching Flight of the Intruder, starring Willem Dafoe and Danny Glover. This is a movie I enjoyed. Jed, you've never seen this, have you?
Nope.
This is the adaptation of a book series that went on for a very long time. I've heard it's very good. I have a very good source that said they're all good. So we're going to enjoy Flight of the Intruder. It's a Vietnam War movie. So it's it's going to have some interesting socio topics to come up, but I love it. It's a lot of fun. I'm excited to watch it. I haven't seen it in a long time. We're going to have a good time. So there you go, guys. Once again, chat across both the chats. Thank you, everybody, for watching. If you had a good time, hit that like button live or when we re-upload it. And until then, guys, take it easy. Take it easy. I'm done. We're done. Good night, everybody.